All right. So prepping,
Yeah,
it can feel a little overwhelming, right?
it can.
Especially when you're trying to juggle like city life.
Right.
But what if we thought about it a little differently?
Okay.
What if it wasn't about, bunkers and doomsday and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
but about like building a sustainable food system like in your urban space?
That's a great point.
Right.
And actually, that is the approach that the Portuguese prepper takes in this guide.
Oh, cool.
It's really refreshing, actually,
Yeah.
because it really focuses on the challenges that city dwellers face. Limited space,
Right.
relying on these complex supply chains.
Which are way more fragile
Exactly.
than we realize,
And
right?
it's like one snowstorm,
One snowstorm.
one power outage,
And poof,
and your corner store's empty.
empty.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's about understanding that vulnerability and like taking those steps
Yeah.
to sort of mitigate it.
Okay, but let's be real.
Yeah.
No one wants to feel like they're living in a bunker.
Right.
This guide's not about that, is it?
No, not at all.
Okay.
It's about peace of mind,
Mhm.
starting small,
Okay.
and gradually building up to like a 3 to 6 month supply.
Okay, 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
So what kind of food
Yeah.
are we talking about here? I'm assuming it's not just like
Not just mountains of beans.
it's mountains of canned
No,
beans.
no, variety is key,
Okay.
especially for the long haul, right? This isn't just about surviving.
Right.
It's about thriving, even when things are disrupted.
Okay.
And the guide actually breaks it down into these different scenarios. What you need for quick evacuation versus like a longer term thing.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so they suggest freeze-dried meals,
They do.
which I've got to say,
Yeah.
a 25-year shelf life.
It's amazing.
That just sounds
That's like science fiction.
like science fiction.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's the science behind that? Like, how do you make food last that long? Well, it's pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
They use this process called sublimation,
Uh-huh.
and they basically remove all the moisture while the food's frozen.
Okay.
And what you're left with are these like lightweight bricks
Wow.
of whatever you can imagine.
Okay.
Fruits, veggies, full meals.
So it's not just like the astronaut ice cream
It's not.
that I remember from like when I was a kid.
No, they've really upped their game.
Okay. I admit the idea of having like a food time capsule
Right.
tucked away just in case is kind of fascinating.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
efficient,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're trying to save space.
Right.
But even with all this futuristic food,
Yeah.
you can't forget the trusty canned goods.
The classics. They're classics for a reason.
Right.
But what do you recommend for people with storage?
Yeah, that's a big one.
Especially when they're dealing with,
It's-
a tiny apartment.
In the city.
I'm picturing
Yep.
those prepper pantries you see online, which is not realistic
Not at all.
for most people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the guide has some clever hacks
Okay.
specifically for small spaces.
Okay.
Think vertical storage,
Right.
under the bed,
Mm-hmm.
and labeling.
Labeling.
Meticulously, just like Tetris.
Okay. That makes me feel a little bit better
Okay,
because I can handle Tetris.
you got this.
But vertical storage
Yeah.
in a small space.
So think like slim, stackable containers
Okay.
that you can label really clearly.
Okay.
You can even use clear containers so you can see what's inside
Oh, that's smart.
without having to pull everything out.
Okay.
And using your wall space is key.
Right.
Shelving units, hanging racks,
Wow.
even pegboards.
Okay.
You can create a lot of storage.
Okay, that's a good visual.
Yeah.
I can see that working.
Yeah.
Okay, before we get too carried away with organization, let's
Yep.
go back to the food.
Okay.
I'm curious about what the Portuguese prepper suggests
Yeah.
for those different scenarios,
Okay.
like the different emergency scenarios.
Yeah.
So let's start with like a short-term event,
Okay.
like a sudden evacuation.
Right.
What would be in your go bag?
Your go bag.
Yeah.
Ready to eat
Okay.
canned goods,
Mm-hmm.
energy bars,
Okay.
MREs.
MREs.
Yeah.
Like the
toilet
meals
stick
ready to eat.
piping digs.
Compact, high-calorie foods
Mhm.
don't require any prep.
Okay. So we've got the go bag.
Right.
What about like a longer term scenario?
A week-long power outage.
Yeah.
But
Right.
like, what would that look like?
For that, you'd want to add in more
Okay.
substantial items,
Okay.
freeze-dried meals,
Okay.
bulk grains,
Mm-hmm.
and a way to cook them,
Right.
like a camping stove.
Oh, I have one of those. I
That's
use it for backpacking,
Exactly.
so it could double
Resourceful.
for an urgency.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got the go bag
Mhm.
there. We've got the extended power outage.
Okay.
What about like the really long term?
The long term.
Yeah, is that where we get into
Well,
like growing food indoors?
they touch on it,
Okay.
but it's very approachable.
Okay.
Like they talk about seeds for sprouting microgreens,
Okay.
which you can easily grow in a small space
Okay.
indoors.
I can see the appeal of
Yeah.
having fresh greens
Yeah.
if you're stuck inside for a while.
Exactly.
But I'm realizing now there's a lot of ways
There are.
I mess this whole thing up.
Absolutely.
What are some of the mistakes
Oh, there's so many.
that people made?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the biggest
Yeah.
is overbuying and hoarding,
Oh, yeah.
especially when you first start out.
Okay.
It's really easy to get caught up in the what ifs.
Right. Right.
Yeah, and then you end up with
Mountains of stuff.
mountains of supplies you don't need,
Well, you can't store.
can't store.
Right.
And
Yeah, that makes sense. So,
it's easy to get overwhelmed.
absolutely.
So how do you recommend?
Start slow.
Okay.
Prioritize.
Mm-hmm.
Think about your specific needs.
Okay.
Build your supplies gradually.
Right.
Focus on what you'll actually use
Okay.
and rotate.
Okay, so avoid the impulse
Yes,
to buy a pallet of canned tuna
exactly.
on sale.
Don't do it.
Okay, got it.
It's about quality over quantity.
Okay.
And building that sustainable emergency food supply is a journey,
Mm-hmm.
not a sprint.
That's a good philosophy for life, really.
It is.
Yeah.
And one more thing.
Okay.
Don't overlook special dietary needs.
Oh, that's such a good point.
Yeah,
I have a friend who's gluten-free,
right.
and I can imagine that would be a major issue
The foot,
in an emergency if
if
you're
the-
relying on.
If you're just relying
There's a standard
on a standard kit.
kit.
Yeah. So allergies, specific diets, even just preferences.
Right.
Make sure it caters to everyone
Yeah.
who might be relying on it.
Yeah.
Customize your preps like
Yes.
you would
It's
anything
true.
else in your life.
Your needs and circumstances.
Okay, so we've talked about the food.
Yeah.
We've talked about storage,
We have.
avoiding mistakes,
Yes.
customizing.
Mm-hmm.
What's the one thing
The one thing
we haven't mentioned?
that no one can live without,
You're talking about water.
water.
Right.
Right. Absolutely crucial.
Yeah.
You need it for everything.
Yeah.
Drinking, cooking, basic hygiene.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so how
For
much
what?
water are we talking?
So at least a gallon per person per day
Okay.
for at least 3 days.
So we're not just talking about
That's for basic needs. Like,
a quick trip to the grocery store. No.
this is some planning.
Planning.
And if you're thinking long term,
Yeah.
you might want to think about larger containers
Okay.
or a filtration system.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's a filtration system.
Right. It's a worthwhile investment,
Yeah.
especially in a city
Right.
where access to clean water could be a problem.
Could be compromised
Yeah.
in an emergency.
It's about thinking ahead.
Okay.
You know, it makes me wonder,
Glad it.
how did people do this
Yeah.
back in the day
Right.
before all this modern stuff?
Before freeze-dried
Yeah.
meals and gadgets.
Yeah, all the gadgets.
You know, prepping in some form.
Well, think about it.
Yeah.
Prepping has been around forever.
Right.
People have always had to find a way to preserve food
Mm-hmm.
and resources.
Right, like root cellars
Exactly.
and canning.
Yeah.
It's not just a modern fad. It's like a human instinct
Right.
to be prepared.
Yeah, it's about that
Okay.
resilience and self-reliance.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we move on,
Okay.
I want to act this back to our listener
Right.
who's probably living a busy life in a city.
Mm-hmm.
We've covered a lot,
We have.
but what's like one key takeaway?
I think the key takeaway is
Yeah.
prepping doesn't have to be overwhelming
Right.
or extreme.
Right.
It's about those small steps
Mm-hmm.
to enhance your security
Yeah.
and self-sufficiency.
So less prepper panic,
Less panic.
more prepared peace of mind.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
It's about empowering yourself
mm-hmm.
with knowledge and skills.
It's not about living in fear.
No,
It's about
it's about confidence.
feeling confident.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and taking control of your well-being.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm curious
Oh, me too.
to dig a little deeper
Mm.
into this idea
Mm.
of sustainable prepping and how it relates,
Well,
not just to emergency situations,
Right.
but like everyday life.
I love that.
Let's explore that
Let's do it.
in the next part of our deep dive.
Sounds good. You know what's interesting? We tend to think about prepping as these huge, dramatic events.
Right.
But taking a sustainable approach can really be helpful in your everyday life, too.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Like just those unexpected things that happen all the time.
Exactly.
Even when it's not a huge disaster.
Right, like a job loss or a family illness.
Right.
Even something small like a burst pipe in your apartment,
Oh,
and
yeah.
you're stuck there for a few days.
Right.
Having a well-stocked pantry and some basic supplies can be really helpful.
That's a good point. It kind of shifts it away from being all about fear
Right.
to being more proactive
Exactly.
and empowering.
It's about being adaptable
Mm-hmm.
and resilient.
Okay, I'm sold.
Good.
But space
Yeah.
is a big issue
A big one.
for city dwellers.
Absolutely.
So how does this guide address that?
Well, it's all about
Yeah.
those creative storage solutions.
Okay.
Utilizing that vertical space,
Okay.
underbid storage,
Right.
and using those slim containers
Right.
on your existing shelves.
So basically turn my apartment into
Yeah.
a giant Tetris game.
Exactly.
Okay.
And remember those Mylar bags?
Oh, yeah.
They're fantastic for long-term storage
Okay, so wait,
because they keep the air out.
how does that work?
So you use an oxygen absorber.
Uh-huh.
It's this little packet that you put in the bag before you seal it.
Oh, okay.
It sucks all the oxygen out,
Wow.
creates like a vacuum.
Okay.
So no spoilage.
That's really smart.
It extends the shelf life.
So it's like a
Yeah.
tiny little food time capsule.
It is.
Okay. So we
And you can reuse the bags too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So we've got space-saving strategies.
Right?
We've got the airtight storage solutions.
Okay.
But what about when you just need like a quick meal?
Yes.
Eh.
The guide actually emphasizes the importance of high-energy snacks.
Oh, okay.
Things like trail mix,
Okay.
granola bars, dried fruit.
Okay. I never really
Helps you keep your energy up,
thought about that.
especially during stressful times or physical demanding situations.
It makes sense
Yeah.
for like a go bag scenario.
It's about that balance
Yeah.
between being sustained and keeping your morale up.
Right. Nobody wants to be
Nobody wants to be hangry.
hangry in an emergency.
Exactly.
Yeah. Speaking of morale,
Yes.
you mentioned variety earlier.
Okay.
When it comes to building a sustainable food supply,
Right.
what are some of the maybe unexpected items or
Okay.
even like gourmet items
Oh, absolutely.
you can include?
Long-term food storage has come a long way.
Yeah?
You can find freeze-dried fruits, vegetables,
Okay.
even meals
Wow.
that are really good.
Okay.
And don't forget your spices and seasonings.
Oh, yeah.
That can make all the difference.
Right,
In
yeah.
making those basic ingredients into something delicious.
Okay. You've got me thinking about
Yeah.
gourmet prepping.
Gourmet prepping. It's
I'll do
about
that.
enjoyment,
Mm-hmm.
making it sustainable.
Right.
It's not just about survival.
It's about abundance,
Exactly.
even when things are uncertain.
Right.
But let's be real.
Yeah.
There's a lot to remember.
There is.
And I'm sure there's mistakes.
There are.
One of the biggest
Especially if they're new to this.
is not rotating your food stock.
Oh, yeah. I'm guilty of that.
Yeah.
Just in my regular pantry.
Right. It's easy for those cans
Yeah.
to get pushed to the back and then
Right. And they expire.
they expire.
Yeah.
Labeling is your best friend.
Okay.
Write the date you bought it
Mm-hmm.
on everything
Okay.
and use that first in, first out system.
Oh, that's a great tip.
Yeah. You can even use a dry erase marker
Okay.
to keep track of what you need to use soon.
That's really smart.
Yeah. It helps with the waste
Mm-hmm.
and it makes sure your food's always fresh.
Okay, so we've got labeling,
Yeah.
rotation.
Mm-hmm.
What other mistakes?
Another one is forgetting
Yeah.
about the non-food item.
Oh, right.
We focus on food,
Yeah.
but things like personal hygiene,
Right.
first aid,
Yeah.
entertainment
Oh, that's a good point.
can make a big difference.
Right. It's not just about your physical needs.
Exactly. It's mental and emotional too.
Right.
Think about what makes you feel comfortable
Yeah.
and safe.
Right.
It might be a book or a deck of cards, some candles
Okay.
to make it feel more cozy.
I love that.
Yeah. Those little touches can help you cope
Right.
with the stress.
Mm.
Okay.
So we've got food,
We do.
water,
We do.
storage rotation,
Yeah.
non-food essential,
Right.
a little entertainment.
Okay.
Anything else?
One last thought.
Okay.
Involve your family
Oh, that's a good point.
or whoever you live with
Yeah.
in the process.
Oh.
Make sure everyone knows
Yeah.
where things are, how to use them,
Mm-hmm.
what to do in different situations.
It's like teamwork,
It
a
is.
shared sense of preparedness.
Yeah, it's about.
Okay, I'm curious to hear
Okay.
what specific steps
Mhm.
our listener can take
Right.
to start building their supply,
Yeah,
especially
especially
for their busy city life.
right in the city.
So let's explore that.
Let's do it.
In the final part of our deep dive, so
Yeah.
we've covered a lot.
We have.
Freeze-dried food,
Mm-hmm.
Mylar bags.
Yeah.
I'm feeling a lot more informed
More prepared.
and maybe a little hungry.
Always a good thing.
But let's talk action,
Okay.
because I think our listeners probably thinking,
Yeah.
okay, this sounds great,
Mhm.
but where do I even begin?
Right. That's the question, isn't it?
Right.
And I think the best part is
Yeah.
Sustainable prepping, it's a journey.
Okay.
It's not a race.
Less panic.
Less panic.
More peace of mind.
Exactly.
Okay, so what's a good first step?
Well, I would say start with what you already have.
Oh, okay.
You might be surprised
Yeah.
how much stuff in your pantry.
Right.
Could be emergency supplies,
Yeah, okay.
canned goods, pasta rice.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah, those are great foundations.
Okay, so inventory first.
Inventory first.
Then what?
Then think about your needs,
Okay.
your preferences,
Mm.
any dietary restrictions, allergies. Right.
What are your comfort foods?
Oh, that's a good point.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not just about surviving. It's about thriving.
So it should feel good,
It should.
not like a chore
Exactly.
to build this emergency pantry.
And when you're building up your supply,
Okay.
prioritize versatility.
Okay.
Things that can be used in multiple ways.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Think about beans, lentils, oats.
Right.
They can be used in lots of things.
Okay, so I'm seeing a pattern here. What's that?
Start small.
Start small.
Think smart.
Think smart.
Make it enjoyable.
Make it enjoyable.
It doesn't have to be this scary bunker thing.
Right.
And you were saying it's not just about the supplies.
It's not. It's a mindset
Right. It's like a mind.
of preparedness.
Okay.
Self-reliance.
So it's about feeling empowered,
It is
not afraid.
taking control of your own well-being,
Okay.
creating that security for yourself and
Yeah.
your loved ones.
I love that.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up,
What's one thing you want our listeners to remember?
I would say embrace the process.
Okay.
It's not about being perfect.
Right.
It's about progress.
Mm-hmm.
Every step you take
Yeah.
towards that sustainable emergency food supply
Mm-hmm.
is a step towards a more resilient and empowered future.
Beautifully said.
Thank you.
And for our listener
Okay.
who's ready to take action right now,
Yes.
what's one tiny little thing they can do today?
Go to your pantry.
Okay.
Pick one thing
Mm-hmm.
that you already have
Okay.
that could be part of your emergency stash.
Okay.
Label it with today's date.
Okay. Boom. I love that.
You've started
Simple. Actionable.
actionable,
Empowering.
empowering.
Well, thank you so much
You're welcome.
for guiding us through this.
It's been a pleasure.
I feel inspired
I'm glad.
and ready to tackle
That's what we want.
my own prepping journey.
Remember, knowledge is power.
And that's a wrap
Yes.
on this episode of The Deep Dive.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you found this exploration insightful
Yes.
and empowering.
Absolutely.
Remember, preparedness is a journey, not a destination.
It is.
So start small.
Start small.
Stay curious.
Stay curious.
Stay curious.
And enjoy the process
Always.
of building a more resilient future
Yes.
for yourself and your loved ones.
Oh, absolutely.
Thanks for listening.